Hey, Madam Jusko from ProudMoney.com. Well, there's a new rumor out there about as vague as a rumor can be from Doctor of Credit saying that a reliable source has told them that there are going to be, sounds like, multiple new cards coming from Capital One, as well as some new enhanced sign-up bonuses as well. Since we have very little information, I could just end the video right here and then you'd know exactly what was already on the website. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to do a little conjecture and do maybe a little guessing of what's going to happen, a little wish list of what could happen with Capital One with these new credit cards. Now, first off, over the last year, Capital One has filed trademarks for a whole bunch of names that are related to credit cards, although it's not sure what of these trademarks are going to be used and whether they are for actual names of credit cards. But there are some interesting things like TORQ, which I am totally pulling for, TORQ, and then there's Mark, M-A-R-Q, and then Infinity, Icon, and a bunch of other ones. The two that have shown up multiple times with sort of different artwork or whatever are Arrive and Velocity. So if I had to guess, I would say that those are probably the two that are most likely to actually turn into real credit cards or lines of credit cards from Capital One, but I'm pulling hard for TORQ. Now, if I go on the assumption that Arrive and Velocity are going to be the names of two new Capital One credit cards, which of course is a big assumption, looking at those names, Arrive at first would make me think of travel, but I have a hard time seeing Capital One going away from the venture naming convention that they've been using on all of their travel cards or starting a new one with Arrive as a name. So I'm going to guess that Arrive means something else. I would take a stab and say that maybe it is something along the lines of gas and electric vehicle charging, maybe transit, public transportation, and parking, all the things sort of related to you arriving at your destination without it being necessarily an airplane or otherwise to get there. So something maybe more your land transport of something that you already own could fit the Arrive name. Now, Velocity obviously could go in a ton of different directions, but it would be interesting to see Capital One do a card that sort of upped the reward as you spent more each month. If we thought of that as a cashback card, or even if you thought of it as a potential miles card, something where you could gain more as you spend more. So maybe you're only getting 1% at the beginning on the first $250 per month, but then maybe it goes up to 1.5% until $500, then maybe from $500 to $1,000, you're going up to 2%, and then maybe after $1,000 up to whatever cap makes sense mathematically, you'd go up to 2.5%, a little like the old Discover model when they first showed up, where you would get a much smaller reward on your beginning purchases, and then it could go up to a certain amount. Of course, we are in a totally different era now where cardholders expect to be getting a lot more than Discover used to give back in the day. But that is something I could see fitting, that Velocity name. You're getting a little more velocity, a little more rewards as you go up in your spending each month. It doesn't totally fit with Capital One's sort of simplicity theme that they like to have with a lot of their credit cards, but there's always a time to change if things aren't working anymore. So Capital One might be like, all right, well, that simplicity made sense in the past, but now there's a million credit cards out there and people seem to like all these different reward schemes, so let's go down that road. Now, I based those two conjectures on names that we already see that Capital One has filed for trademarks for, but I'll also talk about some other places where I think Capital One might have some holes or where I could see them making some changes, whether that is a new credit card or maybe sort of replacing something that already exists. Which brings us to the Capital One Quicksilver, which has been around for a long time, sitting there at that 1.5% flat cashback level, while many cards on the market have surpassed them. But Capital One has always seemed sort of content to keep that card where it is. Maybe because there's a lot of people that end up in the Quicksilver who maybe have a little bit lower of credit scores, and so they're happy to be getting that reward, even though there may be cards that are better on the market. If they don't qualify for them, it doesn't really matter if they are giving more in rewards. But maybe Capital One does something a little different. Maybe they take away the Quicksilver name and bring in a new name, and then maybe increase that base a little bit in terms of the cash back. on the card, but maybe you could even have a card where you have an annual fee and then you increase beyond what we see on the market with some of the other cards. Robinhood right now, a 3% card that they are rolling out, but you have to pay to be part of their, whatever their program is called. I can't even think of it right now, in order to get the Robinhood 3% card. So you got to be in their gold status or VIP or whatever they are in order to get to 3%. So maybe Capital One does something similar. They're like, you can get to 3% here, but you're going to have to pay $95 or whatever would be the right number as far as they're concerned. Now, on the other hand, Capital One did just tell all the people that were holding the Walmart credit card who are about to lose access to that, or maybe already have, that they're going to be moved into the Quicksilver card. So that a little bit shoots down my idea of the Quicksilver being changed, because I don't know why you would push people into the Quicksilver and then, 3 to 6 months down the road, change it to a different credit card. But you never know. Now, speaking of Walmart, Walmart did get rid of Capital One as their credit card issuing partner. As I make this video, they don't have any credit card issuing partners. So what Capital One could do to get a little revenge is start a retail credit card that essentially gives like maybe 4 or 5% at all of Walmart's competitors, just in order to kind of like stick their finger in the eye of Walmart and said, you shouldn't have ended our partnership early. We could have worked this out. So, give 4% at Target, 4% at Amazon, 4% at, I don't know, Meijer, whatever else is out there that might be a Walmart competitor, something like the, Shoppers Cash Reward, or maybe go down the line of something like the Blue Cash Everyday, where you're getting 3% on online purchases. And so that obviously is a much broader category. So Capital One could do something along those lines and make Walmart a little unhappy. Now, I had another idea about what Capital One might do, and I saw somebody else in the comments of the Doctor of Credit post about these rumored cards say the same thing, and that is to potentially launch their own sort of version of the Discover It card and sort of the Chase Freedom Flex competitor as well, where you have the 5% rotating categories. That way, assuming the merger goes through with Discover, with Capital One buying Discover, well, then you can just kind of shift those Discover It customers into whatever Capital One's new rotating category card is. And then, of course, if the merger doesn't happen, which is a possibility based on some of the stuff that I have been reading, it is going to be somewhat of an uphill battle. Well, then you've got the competitor for the Discover It card, or the competitor for the Chase Freedom Flex card. And so that's something different for Capital One again as well. Now, like I said earlier, Capital One tends to want to go towards simplicity with their cards, and that is really not so simple, a rotating category card, but rules are meant to be broken. And then, of course, when we hear a rumor like this, we start to think of consumer credit cards and what might change there. But of course, Capital One also offers small business cards, and there might be even more opportunity for Capital One on the small business side, because their credit cards, they're really not super competitive in my opinion. You've got cards where if you have no annual fee, you're getting 1.5% cash back, or 1.5 miles, sort of in the same vein as the Quicksilver card. If you want to get 2% cash back or 2x miles, you have to pay either $95 for the miles card or $150 for the cash back card. So none of those super competitive when you look at the offerings, especially of Chase and American Express, but others out there as well. So I definitely could see Capital One doing something different there. They do have the Venture X Business now, which is something different, but that's sort of a clone of the consumer card for small business owners. So maybe we'll see something on the small business end as well. One thing I cannot see Capital One doing in all of this is sort of going the American Express coupon book route again, because they want to generally sort of emphasize the simplicity of their credit cards, and there's nothing less simple than that coupon book theme when it comes to a credit card. So I can't imagine we're going to see any of that from Capital One, but you never know what is going to happen. Would love to hear your thoughts about it in that comment section below. Otherwise, I thank you for watching, and as always, please go to proudmoney.com, where we do credit card reviews, we talk personal finance, we talk deals, and all sorts of other fun stuff too. If you're not going to go to the website or leave a comment below, how about you watch this video next?